I chose to be a maker because I grew up on the Channel Island of Sark, which is 3 miles by 1.5. Has no street lights, no cars, not much else, and there's not a lot to do. So I grew up basically creating things with my imagination and my hands, whether it was stuff from the beach or found in the woods, or on a very, childlike level, very naive, but it gave me quite a lot of pleasure. It's sort of a comfort zone, I guess. And then I came to London when I was 17 to go to St Martin's, where I did a foundation course, and explored lots of different areas of making and mark making and design and colour and creativity, and wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. And then I had always been very enthusiastic about fashion and design, and enthusiastic about fashion design, but I didn't really want to be a fashion designer. But I went and did a fashion design and marketing course in Preston, at Lancs Poly, which is now the University of Central Lancashire, because it's gone all posh. And I had a fantastic tutor who was really encouraging, and it was a 4 year, so it was a sandwich course, which was superb. So it meant a year out in industry, and I tried lots of different things, and really enjoyed the marketing side, enjoyed the design side, but actually probably more the marketing side than anything else. So I wrote to my final degree collection was a range of boots, and I wrote to a number of companies to see if they would help me make them, and I wrote to some tanneries to get some leather, and Trickers of Northampton were very kind and said, yes, come along, you can come and work alongside our pattern maker. And so I spent 2 very happy weeks in their factory doing the designs and the patterns, and then their bespoke maker created my boots for me, for my collection. And that idea of working with your head in your hands basically took me back a little bit to my childhood, and it just resonated with me, and I thought that's what I want to do. But I had bills to pay, so I worked in marketing for 8 years, and I did evening classes in pattern making and various other aspects of the sort of related to shoemaking. And then I joined an evening class doing hand-sewn shoemaking, and the girl who was teaching it was a Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust scholar. And she said, look, if you really want to do this, then apply for a scholarship, and that would help to fund you doing a proper apprenticeship, because you seem to have a knack for it and you've obviously got an enthusiasm for it. And I was very fortunate to be awarded a scholarship, and so I trained with a master shoemaker for 4 years. In a nutshell. That was a long answer.
And craft is often considered an immersive activity. How does this apply to your own practice, and what is the balance and approach between cognitive thinking and haptical fine motor skills?
Since James and I have started teaching shoemaking, we've realised that it's a little bit like riding a bicycle. So you can get on your bike and you can ride it, or you can get on your bike, you can ride it really well, and then over time you get better and better and better and better, and then you can take tight corners, and shoemaking is really like that. We've now been teaching since 2006, so it's probably 200 students probably in that time. It's a very complicated process, but it is a process. So I would say James has probably made a lot more shoes than I have, because I've dipped in and out of the craft as our business has changed, so my responsibilities have changed. But as a maker, the more that I've practiced, the less I've had to think. There are moments where I still stop to understand what the final brief is, or to revisit the design. But generally, there are certain parts of it, for instance, the stitching, where it becomes, it's somewhere where you can relax, and it becomes, it's muscle memory, and you don't have to think, and you can, I mean, shoemakers are described as revolutionaries or philosophers, and I can see why, because it gives you the time to either get really angry about something, so you're going to revolt, or just to contemplate what's going on with the world. So we'll have the radio on and might have conversation, might not have conversation, but you can lose yourself in various stages of it. There's obviously parts of it where it's about fine-tuning and very attention to detail, and then you have to be in the moment. But yeah, particularly with things like the stitching or lasting, so pulling the leather over the last, which is the block the shoes are made on, those are moments where you can relax a little bit more into it.
Okay. And to what extent has prior education, both specialist and state-led, contributed to the understanding and ongoing development of your practice?
For myself, it's, what did it do? So I went to a very academic school, and there were just a few of us that used to escape to the art room, and the art room was generally quite empty, and we could play with materials, and so without knowing it I guess gave me a bite at the cherry in terms of creativity and being able to do that whilst I was at secondary school. Obviously then going on to a foundation course again allowed me to explore lots of different materials, and even doing the degree, it was a very it was quite a broad fashion course, so it wasn't focused on either sort of tailoring, or it was more about exploring fashion as a concept. So we would have to find quite creative solutions to some of the briefs that we were given. Obviously training as an apprentice was critical to my becoming a shoemaker, and we have continued to contact, I mean, the shoemaking community is a very small one, so sharing knowledge and experience is part and parcel of your growth as a maker. You're never just, that's it, you're a maker. It's sort of, concept, you know, that sort of, but it is a journey, and it's something that your skills change and evolve, and your interests change and evolve. And everybody who is a hand-sewn shoemaker has their own way of doing things, whether it's because of the resources available to them. So if you live in an area where there's lots of woodland, you'll be using pegging rather than nails. Different styles of shoes, different that's all down to your locality. So we go to a conference once a year, which is the Independent Shoemakers Conference. So there are clog makers and ballet shoemakers and hand-sewn shoemakers like ourselves, and people demonstrate their skills and crafts. So that sharing, now that sort of I'm within the world, has been more supportive than probably any sort of academic or sort of structured support. And because we teach shoemaking, we're part of that journey to pass on those skills and to spread the word, if you like, about our craft. We always felt that James was teaching at Cordwainers and the London College of Fashion before we started the business. I was teaching accessories design and marketing summer courses at London College of Fashion. So passing on whatever knowledge it was that we had was always really important to us. And so it is important to the craft, whether it's to other makers or to people who are interested in making, or who just like shoes, or who are even our bespoke customers. So we've had customers who have commissioned bespoke over many years, and then they come and they want to find out for themselves what it's really like to make a pair of shoes, which is wonderful. Did that even vaguely answer your question?
Yeah, it did, yeah. And just following on from that, because you've covered a lot of that anyway, but are there any additional factors or inherited knowledge which contributes to you as a maker? Any skills that have been passed on through family or friends or through contacts or colleagues that you've met throughout the development of your professional identity?
Definitely. I mean, so James and I have worked very closely together as business partners and as shoemakers. And he had a broader experience, so he went to work with a number of different makers before setting up as a maker for Lob himself. I trained under one maker, so that was my experience. And then I worked in a studio where there are lots of different artists and makers. So I had more influence from those creative avenues than from shoemaking specifically. So I come at it from a less traditional route or a less traditional avenue, and James comes at it from a very traditional but much broader in terms of his experience of learning. So we've learnt from each other, but those conferences and the opportunity just to sit and talk to other makers, whether they're from Sweden or Germany or America, and to have people come and learn with us who have come from Australia or Singapore or South America, and what their experience of shoemaking in their world is, that's a continuous learning. The world is but you can see a lot of it online. You can access films and videos, but to sit and talk to somebody and to have somebody go, oh, well, when I use my knife, I do this, or when I don't use that sort of an awl, I use this sort of an awl. Those conversations, I think, have greater value.
And how do you see the future of craft, both in its present guise and response to global, political, social, economic and even environmental changes?
Small question. The future of craft is, I think, probably at a tipping point. We have lots of we increasingly invite groups of students into our workspace to show them what's possible. As individuals, I've gone and spoken at schools. We meet young people and talk to them about craft as a career opportunity, because it isn't something that's presented to them as an option. And in fact, sort of anything that's traditionally creative, so whether it's designing, drawing, painting, things that aren't seen to immediately be a source of money, don't have the same aren't given the same priority in education. So as a maker, for me, being able to share what I know about craft is really important. And the future of our craft in particular is probably quite positive, because there's an upsurge of people who are interested in making, who feel an urge to do something with their hands, if only to get away from their everyday life. So if they spend the day sat at a desk, I mean, it takes a lot of energy to go to work and then to go out and do an evening class. It takes a lot of commitment, which just demonstrates that that yearning to make is really quite strong. That you can spend 8 hours in the office and then spend another 3 hours sitting doing something that really does feed your soul. But there isn't that education, there isn't that encouragement through secondary school, never mind and all the options. So you used to be able to go to secondary school and you used to have the options to go and do apprenticeships or to go and do BTECs in creative things, whether it's hairdressing or plumbing or engineering, things that would involve you making and designing and problem solving. Those don't exist and aren't given any focus in secondary school. So there is a risk that people will lose, kids and youngsters won't know that that's something that they can do. and then won't have the benefit of doing it, which is a risk to the global world. They were sort of saying that one of the worst things of social media and the internet is that people lose empathy, because you're not having face-to-face conversations, you're not having eye contact, you don't learn to read somebody, and that starts in the classroom and it continues because you use screens in the classroom, you use screens on the wall. So I hope that there will be a shift change, and that the positives of the digital age work alongside a return to the things that actually make us as human beings happy, and happy not in a self-satisfied way, but that make us content and work well as communities.